I want you guys to do a favor for me and just think about what piece of media has stuck with you throughout your entire life that no matter how old you'll get, no one could ever take from you or make you feel shame for liking. Is it a certain like video game, a certain TV show, movie, a certain artist? Like, just it's almost a part of you. It's a part of your personality. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it will be and always is gonna be Pokemon. I'm not just the only person that feels like this. Pokemon has been a mainstay in not only my life, but gaming culture, pop culture in general. Like, I know for sure everyone's parents know who's a Pikachu, who a Charizard is. My favorite Pokemon is Raikou. My first gamer tag was Raikou EX703. Like,
who's that Pokemon?
Dope ass name, by the way, but still, like, when I tell you that this game has literally shaped me into the person I am, I'm not joking, literally. I'm a person who has always been into lore about video games. Like, I'm a creator. I want to make my own comic book. That's my thing. So I love just appreciating other works of art. I love learning about other stories, video games, books, no matter how good or bad it is. I love learning another person's storytelling to help like me envision my own. You know what I'm saying? I love fiction. I love it. I love it. When I was a child with the Pokemon games, like these games that have a lot of deep actual lore, but that isn't so very blatant. When you're a little kid and you're just pressing A, trying to skip through just so you can catch the next Pokemon on the next route, you don't give a fuck about what the characters are saying half the time, or the messages that are even, you know, being portrayed. You know, having so many years to ponder and now just retroactively thinking about the games and like how the characters interacted and the villains and everything, would you be so fucking surprised to know that Pokemon was woke? Oh, yeah, I know, the W word. Like, what's worse than trying to instill good values in kids like compassion and humility and, you know, appreciating others, other than like teaching them how to gamble and how to get addicted to drugs and, you know, learn how to not clean your house and shit like that. I know this may be kind of anecdotal, but I think my analysis of the games is something that I have not seen too many people talk about on the main a lot. But there are conversations, and I would like to dive more into those by giving how that helped me formulate my idea of how I see things. And also, especially nowadays, anyone trying to carry the woke conversation is usually some balding neckbeard white guy that's complaining about how Gardevoir doesn't look as good as she did back in the old games when she was fucking pixels or something like that. I don't know. These guys have everything to complain about nowadays. The world of Pokemon is so vast, and the creator Satoshi Tajiri did not hesitate in putting in real world elements, good or bad, into his game. And I think the best example of this to just show how woke Pokemon can be is war.
Israel has killed more than 54,000 Palestinians since October 2023. Gaza's infrastructure has been decimated, famine persists, and yet the bombardment and destruction continue with no...
Do the Palestinians have a right to a separate state?
No, I don't think they do. But...
Now to the war in Ukraine, and one of the boldest attacks by Kyiv since Russia's invasion.
Unfortunately, war is something that still plagues our world nowadays, and it's a concept that has made its way into Pokemon that's supposed to be a child game, right? No, it's something that still can devastate a fictional world, and it's still one of the biggest mysteries in the Pokemon universe. Honestly, it's something they haven't expanded on too much, but they should. And in the first games, there's the character Lieutenant Surge, the electric type gym leader. He, you know, references how he was in the Pokemon War, and you know, it's like I said, it's not expanded on too much, but you know, there is a reference to that, and you know, that shows a very realness of there's actual conflicts in this universe. People aren't just all buddy buddy, like, you know, besides like the evil teams that are in the games, you know, there is actual political conflicts or whatnot between, who knows, regions or whatever. But it just shows that there is a large misconception with Pokemon of being very childlike and child friendly, as even in the first game, there is a lot of adult elements already implemented to that. And it doesn't stop there, as in 2013, when Pokemon X and Y came out, there is another reference to the Great Pokemon War. This is when King AZ in the Kalos region, he had created a weapon that was meant to bring back his Pokemon that he had lost after he was forced to send it into this war. After he brought back his own Pokemon, he was still so grief-stricken that he decided to use the weapon that he used for compassion to still use for death and destruction. Even his own Pokemon couldn't stand by his side anymore, seeing that the machine that was created to give it life was the one that ultimately was used to take away others. And like when you're a little dumb fuck, that shit doesn't hit to you. But like when you're adult, you're like, damn, there's actually some shit here when you not just pressing down. There's little lines and text there. You know what I'm saying? There's actual messages there. And like I said, when I was younger, it didn't implement to me what they were talking about. And it just goes into how the other games, there are a lot of more blatant messaging of talking about environmentalism, caring about nature, coexistence, all of that. Honestly, this is the real kicker. This is like what really made me want to make this video, is when I thought about this. This is something that has kind of been a big topic in the current political realm. A lot of people talk about it now. You know, back in the day when you kind of used it, you were kind of called an extremist if you used it and called someone this now. But now it's a more front-facing thing, and it's unfortunately something that a lot of people can't see for themselves. That word is fascism.
My idea is simply this: America was built by and for the white Christian people of this nation.
Fascism is a cult of the leader who promises national restoration in the face of supposed humiliation by immigrants, leftists, liberals, minorities, homosexuals, women.
And I quote, "I need the kind of generals that Hitler had."
Thank you.
Whether Pokemon realize it or not, I think they do. They tackle that all the time. And I think fascism, usually in Pokemon, the characters that perfectly display it are always the evil villains and the evil team leaders. I think one of the best ways to examine how fascism takes a big part of Pokemon's storytelling is by examining how the evil teams and their leaders are a perfect opposite of what the messages the games are trying to portray in each respective region. So for my Pokemon fans that already kind of know the games, you know, bear with me, because I'm gonna have to explain a little bit for the people who are not aware and, you know, kind of here for more of the political side of things. For those of you who don't know, the first two games take place in Kanto, being that Pokemon Red and Blue, while the second games take place in Johto, being Pokemon Silver and Gold. They both share the teams, Team Rocket. While Team Rocket, I don't think act out in extreme means of fascism, I think they still like to indulge in just general evil interests. Like, just say, for example, they run a casino that actually works as a front for their evil lab. Let's just expand on the idea that, of course, the evil team is going to run a casino that incentivizes for you to spend all your money to get rare Pokemon like a Dratini or a Porygon and whatnot, Pokemon that are kind of rare to get in those games. It's very realistic of them to kind of squeeze people out of as much money as they can, and, you know, basically, you know, incentivize people to get addicted to gambling to get Pokemon. And I feel like just in that world of Pokemon where it's incentivized for you to catch and create bonds, and, you know, even trading is a means of like that being a bond thing, you kind of like selling Pokemon as a means of gambling is like Pokemon trafficking. And And of course, the games are not gonna outright say that that's what that is, but that's borderline what the fuck it is. And not only that, but they're just general like goons. They go out and steal people's Pokemon. They fucking tax people on different routes to make them pay and shit like that. They take people, you know, just generally stealing from trainers or whatnot. They even cut the tails off of slowpokes in the second games. Just, they are literal Pokemon terrorists, you know, so shit. And even then, I couldn't even help but, you know, connect the creation of Mewtwo to the idea of humans, you know, creating weapons of mass destruction that they possibly couldn't even understand, but just for, you know, monetary or just, you know, gain for their own, not for the betterment of everyone, just for own personal interest. So nonetheless, Team Rocket is just an evil group that, you know, wants to dominate the world in what seems just normal capitalism. So yeah. So the Hoenn region takes place in the third games of Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. It is shown that Team Aqua and Team Magma are a perfect antithesis to the region's whole messaging of being of coexistence and the importance of nature and caring about it, and not trying to overtake it, but embracing it and becoming one with it. As Maxie, the leader of Team Magma, he wants to use the power of the legendary Pokemon Groudon, basically the embodiment of the earth. He wants to use him to basically create more lands, to create more human infrastructure, and he thinks that would be the betterment of humans. While Archie, on the other hand, the leader for Team Aqua, he thinks that by flooding the region with the power of Kyogre, basically an embodiment of the sea and water, that will create more betterment for Pokemon. And like, honestly, I don't even see how Archie's plan would go at all, because like, you're thinking that you're only helping water Pokemon do that. And like, just imagine all the Charizards and all the Charmanders and Charmeleons basically going extinct because Archie thinks it's a good idea to flood the entire region. Like, what about all the fire types that can't swim, bro? Like, just fuck them. Like, they're just, all fire types can go extinct. Like, how is that bettering Pokemon? And they're just basically the embodiment of two men who think that their idea of how the world should be better is to create, you know, the correct way of doing things. And to go about those ways is by basically forcing their worldview on others and basically shifting the world to their ideas, to how they think it should be. And it is shown and proven that the world can't be like that. You can't control these massive concepts of nature and it means to, you know, control them to your means. Like, they can't be controlled, as like, literally they can't even admit that they're wrong until they see basically that they could not control the legendary Pokemon, and basically their plans blow up in their face. And it sometimes just shows that the evilest people sometimes can be those who think that what they're doing is for virtuous reason. The Sinnoh region takes place in the 4th generation of games in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. And I'm gonna just say it straight up. This nigga Cyrus a fascist, bro. I mean, doing research for the video, I came across a Reddit thread that quite literally said, so is this guy just basically autistic Hitler? But I digress. Cyrus is literally canonically an autistic perfectionist sociopath. He wants to use the respective power of the Pokemon of time, Dialga, and Pokemon of space, Palkia, to basically recreate the entire world into his image. Yeah, this nigga is a fascist, bro. But the fact that this ideology coming from the fact that him becoming an antisocial person due to the means of him being kind of like a neglected child, and he had an interaction with a Pokemon that kind of left him in this state to where he views emotions as, you know, unimportant things. It just also just shows how hypocritical he is as being a team leader, that he has to show emotion. He has to show some sort of compassion or some sort of courageousness that brings people to his cause. And to be a leader like that, you have to be somewhat charismatic. And he believes that the reason why the current world is failing and we're in the current state that we're in is because the root of suffering comes from people having emotions, people having desires and whatnot. But literally in the 4th generation games, there are Pokemon that embody the concepts of emotion, willpower, knowledge, being Mesprit, Azelf, and Uxie, that they literally have to be used to control the Pokemon of time and space. That shows you how important they are into this world, and they are into people. So him trying to create this world into a means where he thinks a piece of that isn't important just literally contradicts what the games are telling and showing him. Him having to use those Pokemon as a means to control what he wants shows how important they are, and just so shows how important when we are as people to have these things. So yeah, this nigga's a fascist. I think another person that expands on this idea as well is Umbreon Libris. He has a great video on it. I'll put a link in the description. Give it a look. Unova takes place in the 5th generation games of Pokemon Black and White and Black and White 2. And just a little sidebar side note, this is my Gen 1, okay? I love Gen 5. This is my favorite game. Everybody was dick sucking on this game when it came out. They hated it. They fucking talked shit on it. But you know, me being a kid, not knowing anything better else, not being on the internet around this time like that, and knowing any discussions going on. I love this game to my heart, and I'm glad that now people love them. But it's just funny to know that back in the day when I was growing up with them and loving them, there were adults who had the older games that hated them. Nonetheless, Ghetsis and Team Plasma are very interesting in the fact that Ghetsis himself is one of the few characters and few antagonists in the games that outright like kind of threaten the main character, that he'll like harm them physically for interfering with his plans. But there's a whole side thing at Alola in the 7th generation games where the evil leaders of a different generation that have succeeded in their plans come into Alola trying to take over, blah blah blah, called Rainbow Rocket. And basically that version Ghetsis is like literally taking Lily, the protagonist's friend, as hostage as a means to get what he wants. Bro, this nigga is a straight up demon, bro. Just the fact that in Black and White, he is first portrayed as kind of like a charismatic person in his first appearance. And he tries to come off as a charismatic leader, caring for Pokemon. And he's carrying this conversation of that people should actually give up their Pokemon and separate themselves. Pokemon has always been treated as the human and trainer bond is absolutely needed in the universe. And Ghetsis trying to, you know, persuade people of that and actually getting some turning heads is actually very interesting. You have to think how like radical that is, that someone is actually convincing people that maybe it's a good thing that we separate ourselves from Pokemon and we not be as one together. But truly, in all reality, what Ghetsis wants to do is basically consolidate all the power to himself to where he's practically the only person who has Pokemon and he can rule over everyone else. So while it is portrayed as a means of being a good thing for Pokemon, it's just someone's way of using that as a means to basically make plans for their own evil interests. It's just borderline fascist shit. He's literally just a straight up dictator, and he even uses his own adoptive son In as a means of basically, In is like a very charismatic, swayful person because he can literally speak to Pokemon, and people follow him very well and people gravitate to him, and they are more inclined to listen to In. And Ghetsis wants to use him as a pawn so he can basically be his shadow king or whatnot. It's truly evil and disgusting, and it just shows how much fascism does play a part in the storytelling of these games, as I think the whole Pokemon being together with humans conversation is very big in this game, obviously, as is someone trying to convince people to separate themselves, something that hasn't been conceptualized in all the other games. People don't want to separate themselves from Pokemon, and oftentimes people who do outright separate themselves from Pokemon usually are portrayed as like abandoning them a lot of the times, even in the anime. Like a lot of time people sometimes like they release their Pokemon like more willingly, but other times it's shown as people just discarding them in like, you know, horrible ways. So I just find that very interesting. So for the last region I'll take place in this video, I know I didn't go through all of them, but I just think that the first 6 games are just a very perfect encapsulation of my point. Kalos takes place in the 6th generation of X and Y, and Lysandre is the leader of Team Flare. And his idea is that the world we live in is ugly because how everything changes and not perfect. And his idea of that, and anything that's, you know, slightly drifts to not what his liking is, he finds completely abhorrent. And he thinks that he should use the power of the legendary weapon. You remember what I was talking about earlier? The King AZ, the weapon he used to basically bring back his Pokemon, but then used to destroy other and kill other people. Basically, Lysandre wants to do that as well, but everybody who is not Team Flare and don't share his same world ideas. Fascist as fuck. Fascist as fuck. Fascist as fuck. And it just shows his like very large hypocrisy and how he thinks that hourly eradicating everyone is not a form of change itself. If not what he thinks is change, it just, his whole world idea just completely falls on itself because it just contradicts how the world works. And it's just simply evil because he actually thinks that he's doing a world a favor by eradicating most of everybody on the planet. Like, what good do you think you're doing at that? That is just how I don't know how fast you can get besides like wanting to recreate the world in your image, other than trying to genocide the people who believe you. Like, shit. And you're probably wondering, like, Corey, get to the point. Why are you talking about fascism, Pokemon, blah, 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 kids game? But honestly, guys, what I'm trying to show you is how media literacy is fucking dying. Okay. What I just did was just explain to you how there is a lot of woke messaging in video games that are seemingly supposed to be for children, but some things that have stuck with me and I've thought about that have grown with me as I became an adult that have in turn made me realize how people speak and how people talk about what they want and what their desires are for the world. When I think about the Pokemon games and I view this evil leader who he thinks the best for the world is for him to recreate it in his image or to liberate people or Pokemon from people or whatnot, those are just a means of fascism just hiding his face, and it's not going to be blatant. And I think I seen this tweet of this somebody saying don't use your characters for your political reasons or something like that, and it was a reference to Sonic. And I'm just like, okay, well, Sonic is a character that goes out his way to stop an evil scientist from basically taking captive of all the harmless and defenseless animals and turning them into killing robots and trying to take over and terraform the land to just become just murder machine factories. Sonic is not going to be a character that's going to outwardly say, fuck you, Eggman, and I love environmentalism. But his actions are going to perfectly display that he has those feelings. He cares for the environment. He cares for the little person. He's going to stop those evil things from hurting other people. People lack the media literacy to where if the character doesn't blatantly say it for them, then they don't think it's real, and people shouldn't enforce their ideas onto the character when these games show these ideas. And Pokemon shows that you have to believe in coexistence. Being with trainer and Pokemon is an inseparable bond, and just coexisting with all others. And I just think that coexistence on a concept of itself, if you can coexist with a fucking creature that's fictional and isn't real, or you can like or if you can coexist with a Pokemon you don't like, then you should be able to share that same fucking feelings for the human that's, you know, on the side of the road that doesn't have anything. Or you should be able to share that same feeling of compassion for the trans person next to you, the black person next to you, the Hispanic person next to you. This idea of coexistence is something that should be shared with all other people. So I love that, you know, Pokemon is going to outwardly say you should care for all other humans, but coexistence and sharing that bond with others and just being happy and being generous to one another is important nonetheless. And even the talks of environmentalism and how important it is to respect nature and not to bend it to our will, but to be one with it. Very important talks. And in our current times of fucking climate change, isn't that ever so fucking important? Maybe our fucking politicians should have played fucking Pokemon and we will be in a better place. And I mean, just in general, in our current time of fascism turning a front face, especially in America, and even half the fucking people can't even see it for themselves, I have to think that maybe a lot of people would be better off playing the Pokemon games and seeing how an evil fascist leader talks and speaks and thinks how what he's doing is for the betterment of people. If they played the games, maybe they would see that when there's a evil, fucking conniving, selfish, lying con man that isn't worth the shit between a baby's ass, is lying them and selling them a false future. Fuck. But that's besides the point. Thank you guys for coming to my video. Y'all know the usual. Stay educated, stay hydrated, stay beautiful.